Louisiana, 1980s. Barry Seal, a commercial pilot, is flying 15,000 kilos of cocaine for Pablo Escobar's Medellin cartel, earning $25 million, smuggling everything from weapons to explosives, dropping drugs into dark swamps with night vision goggles while the DEA watches helplessly. Then he gets caught. To save himself, Barry makes a deal. He'll give the U.S. government Pablo Escobar himself. The CIA sends him on a suicide mission. Fly to a secret base in Nicaragua with hidden cameras and secretly photograph Escobar loading cocaine. If discovered, Barry won't just die, he'll be made an example. On the runway, armed soldiers surround his plane. One camera starts making noise, then a car pulls up. Pablo Escobar steps out and personally loads the drugs. The proof is captured. But instead of protection, the CIA leaks the photos. A $1 million bounty is placed on Barry's head, and a judge exposes his location in open court. How did a commercial pilot end up smuggling for the deadliest cartel on Earth? Why did the U.S. government sacrifice him after he gave them everything they wanted? Here's how Barry Seal became the most wanted smuggler in America. 1972, Barry's a commercial airline pilot for TWA, living in Baton Rouge, married with kids, but he's bored out of his mind because flying commercial means no stunts, no risks, nothing exciting. Barry's an adrenaline junkie who learned to fly at 15 and was doing solo flights after just 8 hours of training when most students need 20 to 30 hours. He's reckless, pushes every aircraft to its limits, and his flight instructors noted he seemed incapable of understanding consequences. And now he's stuck flying passengers on scheduled routes, and it's driving him crazy. Then, a man named Murray Kessler approaches with an offer. Fly 1,350 pounds of plastic explosives from the U.S. to Mexico for anti-Castro Cubans. They're paying serious money. Barry doesn't hesitate. This is exactly the excitement he's been craving. July 1st, 1972, Barry's sitting in a hotel room with 7 accomplices when U.S. Customs agents break down the door. The Cubans were a federal sting operation. Barry gets arrested, TWA fires him immediately, and he burns through his savings on legal fees, facing serious prison time. But during the 1974 trial, the prosecution makes a critical mistake. They brandish an assault rifle before the jury. The defense argues it's prejudicial, and the judge declares a mistrial. Barry walks free on pure luck. But now he's broke, unemployable, blacklisted from every airline. He's a brilliant pilot with no options. So Barry starts small-time smuggling in 1976, flying marijuana from Honduras and using Louisiana's swampy coastline for drops. In late 1979, he gets caught in Honduras with an illegal rifle and spends 7 months in jail. This jail stint changes everything because on the flight home in July 1980, Barry sits next to Roger Reeves, a professional drug smuggler with connections inside the Medellin cartel. Reeves explains how the cartel is investing heavily in aircraft, and talented pilots can make millions flying cocaine. Barry's interested. Within months, he's smuggling for Pablo Escobar's Medellin cartel, and suddenly, Barry's making more money than he ever imagined. By 1983, he's earned over $25 million. Here's why Barry's worth every penny to the cartel. You can't just fly cocaine from South America into U.S. airspace without getting detected. You have to fly so low over the Gulf of Mexico that you're almost touching the water to stay under radar. You have to fly slowly near offshore oil rigs, so any air traffic controller who spots you thinks you're just a helicopter. Then you have to drop your shipment without getting caught. Barry masters all of it. He flies at night with his lights off using night vision goggles, knows the Louisiana bayous better than anyone, radios his ground crew with walkie-talkies and GPS, drops cocaine into dark swamps, and vanishes into the night. His crews retrieve the drugs by boat, load them onto cars, and drive to Miami. None of his men ever get caught because Barry's system is absolutely perfect. But Barry has 2 fatal flaws that will destroy everything. He's lazy, and he loves to brag. While Barry knows to use only payphones, he's too lazy to keep changing which ones, so when the DEA investigates him, they simply wiretap his 10 favorite payphones and start building a case. and Barry can't stop boasting about his exploits. In 1981, a DEA agent wearing a wire walks into a Baton Rouge bar, approaches Barry, and basically says, "You look like someone with incredible smuggling stories." Barry starts talking and even promises to smuggle drugs for the undercover agent. It's over. March 1983, Barry gets indicted for cocaine smuggling, facing 10 years in prison. He panics because 10 years means 10 years away from flying, from the life he loves. Desperate, Barry offers to become an informant. The DEA agents laugh. "What can you possibly give us?" Barry's answer: Pablo Escobar. It's a wild gamble because Barry's never met Escobar, has no idea how he'd set up the world's most dangerous drug lord. But Barry calls a cartel contact, pretending to be a new pilot named Ellis McKenzie, interested in moving large quantities of cocaine. Somehow it works. The contact agrees to arrange a meeting with Escobar himself. The DEA realizes they might be able to dismantle the entire Medellin cartel. They offer Barry a plea deal. April 8th, 1984, Barry flies to Colombia, and that evening finds himself at the Ochoa brothers' estate face-to-face with Pablo Escobar and the entire cartel leadership. It's the first time a DEA informant has ever met Escobar directly. Luckily, Escobar has no idea Ellis McKenzie is actually their old pilot El Gordo, who got arrested. Escobar explains the plan. Barry will fly 15,000 kilograms of cocaine to America, but instead of loading in Colombia, he'll fly to a military base in Nicaragua, where the Sandinista government is renting space to the cartel. Barry agrees, desperate to end the meeting and survive. But when the CIA hears about Nicaragua, everything changes. In 1984, the Sandinista government is America's enemy, left-wing rebels close to Cuba and the Soviet Union. The CIA has been illegally funding right-wing death squads, called Contras, to wage civil war against them. The American public knows the Sandinistas are communists, but doesn't know they're also trafficking cocaine. If the CIA can prove this connection, support for regime change will explode. And Barry's first flight into Nicaragua goes wrong. Someone forgets to tell the troops on the ground about the operation. Barry gets shot down over the jungle, arrested, and thrown in a Nicaraguan jail. When the DEA contacts the CIA for help, the CIA takes over the entire operation. When Barry returns to the US, his mission has completely changed. He's no longer just a DEA informant. Now he has to use hidden cameras to photograph Escobar and the Sandinistas loading cocaine on a military base. Barry begs them not to make him do this because he knows what cartels do to informants. If he's lucky, they'll shoot him quickly. If he's unlucky, they'll torture him for days and leave his mutilated body hanging from a tree as a message. But the CIA doesn't care. Either take the photos or go straight to prison for 10 years. June 26, 1984. Barry boards a plane equipped with 2 secret cameras hidden in the cargo bay and flies to Nicaragua. It's the longest day of his life. When Barry lands at the military airfield, armed Nicaraguan soldiers immediately surround his aircraft with rifles pointed at him. Barry's sweating, trying to act normal while 2 cameras are secretly filming everything. Then disaster strikes. One of the cameras malfunctions and starts making loud mechanical noises that could give everything away. Barry has to think fast, so he guns the plane's engines to cover the sound, pretending he's just doing routine checks while his heart pounds in his chest. But the most terrifying moment comes when a vehicle pulls up next to the plane and Pablo Escobar himself steps out. Barry watches in absolute horror as Escobar walks around the plane, inspects the cargo hold, and then starts throwing duffel bags full of cocaine into the aircraft while the hidden cameras capture everything. Every movement Escobar makes is being filmed without his knowledge. This is Barry's death sentence. The moment Pablo Escobar appears on film with cocaine in his hands, Barry becomes a dead man walking. Barry somehow keeps his composure, finishes loading, and takes off from Nicaragua. When the CIA sees the photos and video, they're absolutely ecstatic. And they have clear evidence of Pablo Escobar personally loading cocaine. Proof that the Nicaraguan military is involved in drug trafficking. Everything they wanted. The CIA is so excited that they make a catastrophic decision. They leak the photos to the press to embarrass the Sandinista government and build support for the Contras. By mid-July 1984, Barry's face and identity are all over the news. The Medellin cartel immediately places a $1 million bounty on Barry Seal's head. Every sicario in Colombia now knows his name, knows his face, knows he's the informant who betrayed Escobar. Barry's family has to go into hiding. U.S. Marshals provide security. But Barry still has to attend court hearings because his plea deal requires cooperation, which means appearing in public where anyone could take a shot at him. January 24, 1986. Barry goes on trial in Baton Rouge for his original cocaine smuggling charges. Because of his plea deal and cooperation, his sentence is fairly light, 6 months of community service at a Salvation Army halfway house. But there are conditions. Barry is forbidden from carrying a weapon, forbidden from having security guards, forbidden from protecting himself in any way. And then the judge does something so monumentally stupid that people later speculate it was deliberate. Right there in open court, in front of reporters and the public, the judge reads out loud the exact address of the Salvation Army Center where Barry will spend the next 6 months. It's essentially a public announcement telling the Medellin cartel exactly where to find their $1 million target. Barry's lawyer immediately objects, pointing out that this information puts Barry's life in danger. But the judge dismisses the concern. Within days, Colombian hitmen receive the information. They cross the border into the United States, travel to Louisiana, and begin surveillance of the Salvation Army Center, watching Barry's routines and waiting for the perfect moment. February 19, 1986. Barry Seal follows his usual routine. He drives to the Salvation Army Center in Baton Rouge, pulls into the parking lot, and parks his car in his regular spot. It's mid-afternoon. As he reaches for the door handle to exit the vehicle, 2 men emerge from different positions in the parking lot. The hitmen open fire simultaneously, unleashing a hail of bullets that tear through the car. Barry Seal is hit multiple times and dies almost instantly, slumped over in the driver's seat. The assassins calmly walk away, get into a waiting vehicle, and drive off. By the time police arrive minutes later, Barry's already dead at age 46. The most valuable DEA informant in the war on drugs has been executed in broad daylight in a public parking lot. Authorities eventually track down and arrest the hitmen responsible for Barry's murder. They're convicted and sentenced to life in prison. But the conviction doesn't change anything for Barry or for the larger war on drugs. Down in Colombia, Pablo Escobar continues running his empire with impunity, terrorizing the entire country with bombings and assassinations. Escobar won't face justice for another 7 years, finally getting killed in a rooftop shootout with Colombian police in December 1993. The CIA's Nicaragua operation that cost Barry his life also fails to achieve its goals. Despite the leaked photos showing Sandinista involvement in cocaine trafficking, the Sandinistas remain in power until 1990 when they lose an election, but they return to government in 2006, and at the time of writing, still lead Nicaragua's government. The entire operation that Barry died for accomplished essentially nothing. As for the war on drugs itself, it simply relocated to new battlegrounds. Colombia today is relatively stable and peaceful after decades of violence, but you only have to look at Mexico to see that drug trafficking and cartel violence are still massive problems. The cartels didn't disappear. They just moved and evolved. The billions of dollars spent, the thousands of lives lost, including Barry's, haven't stopped the flow of drugs into America. But what about Barry Seal himself? His story remains fascinating because for 2 or 3 short years, he stood at the absolute center of the war on drugs. The point where smuggling, politics, CIA operations, and cartel violence all collided. A commercial pilot bored with his safe job became a $25 million smuggler who flew cocaine for Pablo Escobar, then flipped and became the DEA's most valuable informant. Met Escobar face to face. Weir risked his life photographing the world's most dangerous criminal and paid the ultimate price when his own government leaked his identity. Barry Seal was reckless, greedy, and loved the thrill more than his own safety. But he was also a man who, when caught, tried to do the right thing by helping take down the Medellin cartel. The tragedy is that the CIA and federal judge cared more about their own agendas than protecting the informant who'd given them everything. They sacrificed Barry Seal for political points and photographic evidence, then acted surprised when the inevitable happened in that parking lot. That's how Barry Seal's incredible and dangerous life came to an end. Subscribe for more true stories of people who lived on the edge until the edge came for them.